I've been debating on whether or not I should record another one of these or just leave it for a little bit, take a break, and instead of observing, actually avidly participate. But my observations got the best of me, and I ended up right back here again. So, first and foremost, I just want to express that I hope that everybody is having an amazing day. And once more, since the last time I came to you, it was winter break, and subsequently, that's a weird way to say the word subsequently. It's still winter break. It's probably the wrong usage of the word, but I hope that everybody's having a great day, enjoying themselves, discovering themselves, seeing themselves through this world, enjoying family, enjoying the changes that come with going back to an old new environment or a new old environment. So that's kind of what I'm here to talk about. But before that, I just wanted to ask and how everybody's doing, check in on everybody. Or by everybody, I mean the very few people that actually listen to this. But I want to start off this podcast with a text that I either sent or received. I can't remember. But I mentioned old new environments or new old environments. And please excuse my nasally voice. I'm a little under the weather right now. Toronto lost to the Pistons. I'm sick. But, alright, here's the message. This sensation is akin to walking through a familiar forest, but noticing the trees have changed. Our minds are wired to seek comfort in consistency, and when old patterns don't align with our new growth, it can feel disorienting. It's a natural response to the evolution of our social and emotional selves. Physiologically, our bodies respond to these shifts too. The adrenaline of novelty and the warmth of familiarity each have their own physical signatures. My middle school days are etched in the calmer rhythms of long-established neural pathways, whereas my ACU experiences are like the new stars in my neural galaxy, vibrant and energizing. Emotionally, this divergence is a testament to growth. Like a river that shapes its banks over time, our emotional landscapes are sculpted by experiences. The comfort I find in my ACU circle is a reflection of who I am now, just as my middle school memories mirror who I was then. This journey represents the fluidity of human connections. Each interaction, past or present, is a thread in the tapestry of our lives. The contrasting feelings I experience don't signify a loss, but rather a rich, multifaceted existence. It's in these varied interactions that we find the depth and diversity of our own being. In embracing both these worlds, I acknowledge the beauty of change and the richness it brings to my life's narrative. Each chapter, old and new, is essential in the continuous unfolding of my story. So, this comes from being frequently told when checking up on people or when people checking up on me that things are just so new or their experiences are not what they are accustomed to. I guess that foundation was kind of necessary considering what I'm about to talk about. Before I left the city, my mentor, shout out to Jamal Berger, who will never ever even acknowledge the existence of this podcast because he's in freaking Japan doing big things. But once again, he wrote me a note. I believe it was him and Desiree, but I don't know if it was one or the other. Could have been both, but both of their loves were plastered all over this note. And I'm trying to pull it up right now. And I know I'm doing a lot of reading on the podcast. It's supposed to be somewhat spontaneous, but let me cook. So the note said, a young man with a big heart for the world and his family is what I see, and a bunch of really kind things. And then he said, spend little to no time thinking about where you are not and invest those thoughts and feelings into exactly where you need to be. I need you to enjoy yourself and appreciate your ambition. I need you to love your mom. I need you to be more than you could ever imagine. Simply be, arrive as yourself unapologetically, and lead your way with love. Everyone will still be Everyone will still be here if you come back. So, he said, believe me when I say you're not missing out on anything. And it's crazy, right? Because I come back to the city and the people who he reassured me would be here kind of gone. But they're not gone physically, they're gone mentally. They've left Toronto, they've checked out long before they've even had the chances to get on a plane and etch a carbon footprint into this world bigger than the impacts that they're about to leave. Actually, no, it's vice versa because their impacts are going to be greater than the carbon footprints. But it's funny. It's ironic to me because at the time I was leaving my city from an athletic standpoint, I felt that I had done everything I needed to do athletically here, which proved to be wrong. But I digress. We continue. What ended up happening was, from that standpoint, I met a lot of people. I ended up doing a kickback shoe drive, which is where I met a lot of the people I know now. Elliot, artists, creatives. I don't think creative is even a term that I can use to encapsulate their art and how they create. It's beautiful. And we'll return to Elliot because a lot of this was inspired by him. So I met him. He played basketball at Collège Français. For those who don't know, I am the my foundation is Catholic school, Catholic French school. So yes, I do speak a little bit of French. But Elliot was, well, I believe from what I remember, born in France, and then he ended up moving to Toronto at a pretty young age, right? And I met him before I knew much about him being a creative. Yes, I think I might have seen his page here or there, but I didn't really know him. And even after the shoe drive, I don't think I really knew who he was. I knew his ambitions. I knew how intelligent he was. I knew that he loved Frank Ocean, and I knew that his hairstyle was, I think it was blonde at the time, where it was just a mixture of things. He kind of wore his personality on his hair, his ambitions on his hair, or in his hair. His hair was a nice little symbol of how ambitious he was and is. And even then, I think we connected on music, but I still hadn't been completely honest with myself, and I was so focused on intellectualizing everything. I couldn't meet him on an emotional level, which is where art stems from. So we met on a more surface level, which was basketball, which was my everything at the time. And he had played, and he understood that basketball was a means to an end, which is funny because I was using basketball at that time as a means to get to my end goal. So we were in two different worlds and trying to meet up in one place. Little did I know we would then meet in the same world 2 years later. So before I fast forward, I do want to say that the kickback shoe drive was successful. It was beautiful. It was amazing. I met a lot of good people. I got to interact with a lot of good people. Jordan Sodhi, I hope he's doing well. I got to really, I had the chance to be around some great people and just do a great thing for a group in my city that I really love. They're not even a group, they're a non-profit organization that uses shoes to connect with people. And they do programming around it and whatnot. They're a great group of people. So we do that, and I think the last memory I have of him was before I saw him again, and was him looking at my Spotify acoustic thingy, because you know how you can control I don't equalizer the equalizer, and my stuff was all the way up, every single notch was boosted, and he looked at me and he said, how can you appreciate music, because we were talking about Blonde by Frank Ocean, and he had encouraged me to listen to it. And he said, how are you going to listen to music with it with your freaking equalizer all the way up? And I said, I don't know. And then he changed it. I kept those settings for a long time, and I put Blonde to the side, right? Because I knew that I was leaving Toronto. I didn't really want to tell anybody. I had reached what I believe to be my athletic peak here in the city. So I get to Florida at some point. I think I listened to Blonde. I hated it. I despised it. Now, give me some time. For those who love Frank Ocean, don't 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 see this as some hateful banter towards him, because this is going to come back full circle. I don't make the basketball team in Florida, end up picking up track, learn that basketball is a means to an end, and that I have other abilities that can not only complement basketball, but that can allow me to foster the love that I have for the sport while also pursuing these ambitions that I had never really even allowed myself to have, because basketball was so much of my life, which was art, poetry, photography. Well, not really photography. I like to paint an image and a picture with my words. So my poetry became my photography, became my art. It became everything. So not everything, because I'm not doing everything again. I know who my everything is, and it's definitely not something. I'm not doing that again. Still weary of that. But Florida happens. I grow into this person that you see before you now, and then I moved to Texas and I do a stint in Abilene. Now, not to diminish any of the people or the encounters that I had in the meantime, I'm fast forwarding quite a bit for the sake of this story, because if I really took the time to delve into all of these full circle moments, we'd be here much longer than these 30 minutes permit me. And for context, I can only record up to 30 minutes on a web browser. Excuse me, 30 minutes at a time, and I'm not going to re record. So, what ended up happening is I experienced stuff in Florida. I experienced growth in Florida and Texas, and this is all while harboring resentment towards Toronto, because I'm like, wow, look at what I've been able to do in 7 months or just barely a year. I grew up in Toronto 17 years, and what have I done? Nothing. I need to get out of the city because it's not doing anything for me athletically, right? Um, so that happens, and I begin to realize that, nothing changes if nothing changes. And when something is your everything, it doesn't leave you much room to do anything else mentally, spiritually, physically, or emotionally. I was invested, obsessed fully. If you know the movie Soul, you'll probably be reminded of a quote, which is something along the lines of, you lose a joy for something. Obsession is great, but you eventually lose your joy for it when you become too obsessed. Then you kind of lose your soul in a sense. That's not the quote verbatim, I'm just paraphrasing. But so I just recently finished my stint in Abilene. Who knows if that's final, but if it is, yeah, I moved back to my city, Toronto, home. And I walked through Union Station for the first time, and it was so different. The people were still there, but they kind of weren't. Everything was so new. Everything was so different from what I remembered. But it wasn't. It was the same Toronto. It was the same. Well, not really. Union Station had gone through renovations, but bear with me. It was the same foundation. I looked at walls with a greater sense of appreciation. But it wasn't because they were better now. It's because I think I am better now. And the architecture could have gotten better. But keep in mind that oftentimes what we look at, same forest, but the trees look a little different. The trees aren't different. Our lens that we're looking at the trees through just changed. And it has drastically. I think this is my ninth day back in the city, and each day has had something so memorable. I wish I had been able to document them, but I got so caught up in participating and letting them become memories, I didn't really document them, which is weird because it's not my journey. I like to sit back and watch people experience things that will later become memories for them, and then from that help them discover the beauty in it. But I found myself participating. Like, I was in the moment. I was there. And I'll talk about some of those 9 days because each of those days, as I said, first day at Union Station, uh, getting to my grandmother's place, seeing her for the first time in like 2 years, that was beautiful. If you hear background noises, just know I'm in the heart of the city, so you're going to probably hear some things. And then being able to see my family here, that was really nice. I really enjoyed that. That was really amazing. And then, like, I've definitely gotten taller than them, and everything looked a little smaller. So I understand Darius now when he went back to his schools and he saw everything as smaller. But it's not that the school got smaller; his perspective just got bigger, and his school can no longer contain his ambitions. His ambitions grew past the school, and his perspective did as well. So things started looking smaller for me, and that was okay because I had grown. So I go to sleep, wake up for the second day. I think I had done quite a few things. We fast forward to Christmas. I go to Mississauga. I have these beautiful conversations and time with family. My little cousin, who is 7, turning 8 now. Gosh, I'm old. And then my auntie Skyla, Uncle Muhammad, who is by far my greatest inspiration in life. And I'll say this for I strive to be the man that he is, and he's really cool. I really love him, and hopefully I'll get a chance to one day introduce you to him. Philosophy teacher at Oakton College, the best in the business. So I I get to meet with my nani, my nana, everybody, Olivo, Chandani, just Auntie Nanu, my mom, everybody was there. Well, except for other two people, but that's family that story doesn't need to be told right now. Everybody was there. Everybody was there when they needed to be there. We went ice skating. I have not gone ice skating. Like I went ice skating in Florida for Vanessa's birthday, I believe it was. And yeah, I went ice skating for that. But it was indoor, and if you lived in Florida and know anything about Florida, there's no snow has no business there, which means ice has no business there. 0 degrees Celsius is the cooling point. Florida will never ever get to 0 degrees Celsius, and if it ever does, just know the end times are near. So I ice skated outside for the first time in a while in Toronto, and it was liberating. It was beautiful to say the least. It was nice. It was nice getting to see all those people. It was nice ice skating. It was nice almost taking someone's hand off by nearly clipping them with my blade, but that's a different story. And it was memorable. It was just so liberating. It was free. It was free. It was one of those. If you ever watch The Perks of Being a Wallflower, the first time he looks at that Emma Stone's character stand up on the back of a car, he says, "I feel infinite." That was one of those infinite moments that you really can't buy, replicate, or observe. You just have to be in it to know it. And it was beautiful. It was a nice experience. We went back and we had dinner together as a family. My mom and I stayed an extra day so that we could see my uncle, my auntie, and my baby cousin, who basically looks like my brother. And before any of that, actually, I got to see people who I hadn't seen in a while: Amaru, Ilian, Tanisha. And he lent me this book that I've been looking for. If you've been following this podcast for a while, you know that books are a huge, huge indicator of my journey. And in departing Abilene, I I went to a bookstore with the Goofy Goobers, Lady, Nevaeh, Leslie, Darius, Nisi. But Darius wasn't there at that time, I don't believe. And I ran to the bookstore. I found 3 books in the bookstore that I really loved. 4, but I haven't found the 4th. But I didn't really like that one. It was a cast or case system, which I'd gotten from Ilian and Tanisha. I saw the book sitting in their bookshelf, and they lent it to me. I'll read it and give it back to them. The 4 Agreements, which my guidance counselor gave to me. Then Being Human, which Nathalie gave to me during my departure on my last day in Abilene, which it was kind of the perfect send off. And there was How to Be an Anti-Racist, so 4 books out of 5, but 4 were the ones that I really wanted, and I got them. It was perfect. It was perfect. That was one full circle moment. So in developing this story, and then after that we leave Mississauga, and my mom's like, "You have an appointment at 10 a.m. with somebody very important." We end up getting there late. It's like 10:20. My mom had arranged this surprise with a friend who I hadn't seen in a while. I think she helped me pack. She was one of the last friends that I saw before leaving the city. Her name is Abyssinia. What a great name, right? Abyssinia, if you know the history of Abyssinia, it's a very loaded name. My auntie said that when I told her about the name Abyssinia. She's like, "It's a lot of pressure to put on a kid." And then I really thought about it, and I said, "It's kind of true if you think about it." But she's living up to her name in every sense of the world, in every sense of the word, and she's discovering herself through her loves, her love of a certain human, and her ambitions in life and her perspective. I walk into that coffee shop or that cafe, and Abyssinia's right there. One of the last people that I saw in leaving Toronto, and one of the first, and I believe that was the first friend that isn't family that I saw when I came back to the city. It was amazing. My mom and I sat and spoke with her for what seemed like a while. Got to a point where sometimes conversations are so beautiful you just don't want them to end, and that was one of them. It was really nice. And I got the time to really just speak to her and look at her perspective and congratulate her and thank her for just allowing me to. This podcast doesn't happen without her doing it first. She created the Ravens Orbit, and it gave me my inspiration, her journalism, because I'd always told her I wanted to do journalism, and then going to Northern Secondary and having a teacher in English who really wasn't fond of my writing. I kind of curbed my ambitions in writing. I was like, you know what? If she says I suck, then maybe I do. So I went into communications because I talk a lot. But yeah, as you know. So 20 minutes of talking. So I have 10 more minutes. I'm probably going to have to re record. So keep in mind that we are on the Abyssinia story. So then we have this conversation, my mom and I and her, and then we get to talk individually for a little catch up. My mom and her got to talk individually for a little catch up because she befriended the both of us. My mom loves her, I love her, and we both love her really, 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 very much because she's a great friend to the both of us. And well, we then drop her home. She goes home because she had to have dinner with her family before she went out to Vancouver. And she's going to Vancouver with her. I guess here I am airing out other people's business publicly with mine. So she'll be in Vancouver for a love of hers. And yeah, and then after that, I I don't remember what I'd done in the city. I kind of frolicked, rode a little, spent time with my grandmother, spent time here, and I the timeline's off, but I think not too long after I got back, I met my cousin's girlfriend, my older cousin, Adrian. Basically, the guy I was like chasing him for my entire formative years because he and I both lived where I am right now. And he and I would just talk and talk. And he was like the older cousin slash brother that I had on my dad's side. So it was amazing. It was amazing. I got to meet her. I got to interact with him again. And remember when I said I met Elliot on a basketball level and on a level that I couldn't see. I couldn't meet him on the level that I knew he was that I know now that he is sitting on top of because I myself was nowhere near that level because that was a whole different world. And with my cousin, he's quite older than me, so there's quite a difference between our worlds. But as we sit here right now, it was so nice to see him. It was just so beautiful to see him. I love seeing him. I loved just being able to share his presence, talk to him about everything, catch up, talk to his girlfriend. It was amazing. They're both amazing, and he'll be visiting her family. I think he's still with them. So yeah, that happens, and then we get to. I don't think I've really done a good job at talking about how shocking it was to actually see Abyssinia. When my mom said that we had an appointment, who would have guessed that it was her? But that's not the full circle moment I'm looking for. I've developed too much of a foundation to start off to sidetrack now. That'll be another episode when I can fully digest everything that she told me because she's very wise. So we get to not too long ago, so 2 days ago or so, I get a message and it was I messaged Elliot because we had been talking on an like informal basis. DMs. I tell him I'm really happy to see what he's doing because he's an amazing creative. And then as I discovered myself and my perspective had started to seep into his world or seep into a different world, or I started being more honest with myself emotionally because art is emotion and I can't just ignore one if I want to do the other. To being completely honest with yourself. And the truest form of art is from emotion. So can't fake it. I'd faked it for a while. So as I grew in Florida and Texas, and as it allowed me to broaden my perspective, I would text him here and there and tell him how amazing I think he is and all that stuff and whatnot. So glazing, okay, yeah. And then he tells me that he has this exhibit called Rodeo. Perfect name. And he wanted to know if I could show up. I did. And the second person who I would deem a friend, and just more than that, like friends that connect on a soul base sometimes. And I'm stuttering a lot because I'm trying to see how I can develop this. Before I saw Elliot, I saw two more people who are very much impactful in my lives, and people who I really wouldn't be here without. More mentors. But the mentor that I had brought another person who is to be his wife, which, if you know him, is a little not shocking, but you would have never believed it. A man who was married to his work and whose spirit was fully devoted to it has now given up his work to some extent and found love in his life. So Dan Pringle and Ava, soon to be Ava Pringle, who knows? But they're both amazing. We spoke about a lot of things. We spoke about growth. He spoke about the growth he saw in me. We sat down and just got to discuss a lot of things. And it opened my eyes to how I perceive emotions, how I feel emotions, what I allow and what I don't allow, and what I've done to myself as a byproduct of shielding myself from, I don't know, we'll see. But that was beautiful. That was amazing. They drive me to see Rodeo, or to visit to go see the exhibit, the pop up, he calls it, which Elliot's been based out of a lot of places, most recently London. So it was shocking that he came back to the city to do this. Blessed that he did. And I see him, we get our chance to socialize for a little, but because everybody was coming in, I didn't really get a chance to really talk to him. And I didn't really go there with the intent to to converse with him, or because I found out through conversation with Ava and Dan Pringle that I have this, through the lack of confidence in myself, sometimes I find myself wanting to prove myself through word and just proving myself too much that I don't really give the other person or myself the chance to incubate some of the relationships that I foster. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to either sit back or observe or just let him have his moment, because I didn't go there with the intention of just talking up a storm with him or showing him all these things that I knew, but or all this growth that I had gained. But as anyone who sees somebody who's gotten significantly taller, growth isn't something that should be said by the person who's grown. It's pretty noticeable. So if they have, you'll see it. You'll know it. You'll feel it. I ended up seeing Elio again. I met some people from Elliot's life who are really great people. Samantha, C'est la vie. Yes, not That's life, but like a girl whose nickname is C'est la vie. Saw some people from an old life, which was my life before I left 2 years ago. Helton, who is one of the people who I'm saying, even though he's here and was there, he's worlds apart from where he was when I first saw him. He is now a creative who wants to leave the city and venture past, because now in his realm, he feels like he's completed everything he's needed to. There's a little juxtaposition there. His world is now taking him somewhere else, which is beautiful for him. Love him, one of my favorite creatives, truly. Then there's Miriam. I haven't seen her in a while. She found out she did some work with Toronto Housing, an internship. Really, really amazing. Really incredible. She's such a great person. And Layla, and she was amazing. Elio, and met Samantha, met Elliot, like great people. And then at the end of the night, they were about to go somewhere, so they drove me home like the kid that I am. So they're like, "What's your address and whatnot?" And we they dropped me off at home. He was doing. I found out that he had a 3 day thing, and I came on the second day. I came to buy one of his collections of zines, short for magazines. It's really beautiful. I wish I could show you. If you listen to this and get this far, I'll take a picture of it and show you the cover of it, but not the inside, because that's his work and you'll have to go to his website to buy that. But it was the second day and no one was there. So I walked in, he's watching a skating video. And that was when we got to really speak. Not just about basketball, not just about art, but about his soul, his ventures, what he's been doing over the last couple years, why he feels the need to leave the city, how and we even spoke about the fact that when I left the city, it was because I wanted to pursue a different world and I felt like I'd accomplished everything I had in my world here. He is now felt like he's accomplished everything in his world in this city now, and he wants to leave to another world to discover it and then maybe bring that back when he's ready. And I had met Elliot before, but I've never met him on the level I got to meet him on that day. We shared stories. We talked about skateboarding. He showed me his favorite video, told me about interactions he had with some of these people that are in the video. He talked about the anti establishment nature of skateboarding and why it's ironic that it's now an Olympic sport and established an establishment. How do you really judge tricks? He was really breaking it down for me. And then he asked me if I had watched mid 90s. I said, I've never seen mid 90s. So first he was a little shocked, but he showed me the movie. We watched mid 90s together. Magnificent movie. We talked about his work also throughout watching mid 90s. Got to speak to him, got to really meet him and understand this. I know I told you that I've met him before, but on that day it felt like I had really gotten to I I met him for the first time. I may have met him physically that day, but I got to meet him that day. Not the day when I actually met him physically, but you know what I mean. I keep on saying the same thing. But it was amazing. We shared some love of movie, the love that we have for certain movies, like Perks of Being a Wallflower, mid '90s, which he had just shown me, masterful movie. He then shared with me that I told him that I'd listened to Frank Ocean after what he had suggested, and then before I could even say it, he admitted that he hated it the first time that he listened to it, which is ironic because now kind of become a soundtrack to his life. And it's funny because I didn't think much of him or his suggestion when I listened to it for the first time and hated it. But what I didn't tell you guys is that the second time I listened to it, I loved it. Perspective, right? We've both grown so much, but I was there to see his growth. But I was really revealing to myself a lot more about me through conversation and learning about him and wanting to learn about him, wanting to just talk to him. I got to see his mom and really talk to her, and that was nice. And it was amazing. It was beautiful. It was a really amazing chance to just sit down and have a conversation. He was in the middle of showing me some project that was really dear to his heart, which will be on the lookout for because it's going to be amazing. I got to see a little bit of it before I had to go home, but it was incredible. And I basically spent most of my day with him, just talking, catching up, getting to know each other. Because not know each other, but he didn't really know me. A lot of the people in my life know me, but they don't know me, and that's not to say I'm misunderstood or anything. But as I found out through Ava and Dan, I don't really allow myself to be known, and then I complain about relationships that aren't profound enough, which is what I want. But you can't expect someone to meet you on a level that you haven't met yourself on. So I had to work on that. But I continue to do so. And through just conversations with Elliot, I was inspired to listen to Blonde again and come back. And I just finished watching The Perks of Being a Wallflower again, which Melanie Liebert had suggested to me, but it's been taken to a new level with each creative I meet. Elliot's gonna go off and do his thing. His rodeo pop up just finished today. He was doing it for 3 days, and props to him. He did an amazing job. He entertained all walks of life. People from basketball, I like people from basketball worlds, from skateboarding worlds, from all worlds came to see this man's art. And there's a reason. He's great. He's amazing at what he does. He brings people together, and his soul is contagious, and that's what he does. So, inspired by him to I've been talking for almost what? My first one was nearly 30 minutes. This is 13 minutes of recording. He's quite the inspiring individual. Seeing Elio for the first time in a while was amazing. Meeting Samantha, who is a and I don't want to mess this up. She's the model, but she's creatively responsible for all of her shoots. So at the end of the day, she goes through them, sees what she wants, what direction she wants to go in, and she's responsible for that all. So that's also amazing. Her very refreshing conversation I had with her. Um, the people who are in his lives just kind of walk around with this infinite liberating aura or soul that just speaks to ambitions bigger than life. I've said ambition so much, maybe that'll be the name of this thing, but I don't know. I love coming back and being able to do all of that. And this is just my ninth day back in the city. I told myself when I got to Florida, how dare I be in Toronto that long when I've done so much here in Florida in a shorter time than I've ever done in my home city. I come to my home city and in 9 days I've made so much growth. But what I realized through Dan is that I can't compare growth and diminish other growth because of new growth. It's not something that replaces something else, it just adds to it, like building blocks, like bricks to a house. I'm building that house. I don't take bricks away every time I get new bricks. No, I add them and I fortify the ones that have already been laid. So, day 9 in the city. And look at this. It's beautiful. So, to those who are watching, or oh my gosh, it's late. Those who are listening to this and are walking through familiar forests, but can only, those who are walking through familiar forests yet look at the trees differently, acknowledge that as a sign of growth and see it as a good thing and make something of those new trees because when you walk through that forest again, it'll also look new and so on and so forth. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to all that have heard and stayed with me this far. This is probably the longest solo I've gone on. And I tried to kind of develop my point, and hopefully I did that. There's not really a point, it's kind of open. You know how this goes. My mind is all over the place sometimes. But yeah, truly, praise be to Jesus, genuinely. A lot of prayer, a lot of prayer. A lot of prayers kept me going, growing and going. But yeah, just if I ask of you something to those who have gotten this far, it's to try and meet somebody else in their world. Whether you know nothing about it or everything about it, meet somebody in their own world. Because the beauty, and if you hear a vibration, it's my phone, and I'm sorry, but meet somebody in their world or try and meet them in the world that they're in. And something, we're all masters of our own crafts that we choose to stay in. When you venture outside of it, you realize just much, how, how varied everything can be and how beautiful it is. And who knows, just like me, maybe one day you'll end up seeing somebody's world that was once unfamiliar to you as something so immersive and beautiful and something so familiar. I also got to meet one of his friends, Sam Elliott. That was on the first day. He was a football player, and he is now a photographer, amazing photographer. I follow him on Instagram, and he's incredible as well. He's absolutely amazing. And we spoke about the identity as an athlete and then transitioning into art. And then he said something beautiful because I asked him how much of the football identity does he carry to this day, and would you have ever thought that it would have made you an artist? He said, in hindsight, the beauty about art is that it quite literally can come from anywhere. Like Ratatouille, anyone can cook. And as Igor said, or Anton Ego said at the end, he started to understand the adage, which was not everyone can cook, but a good cook can come from anywhere. So, yeah. To all the people that I've met in these 9 days who have fostered so much wisdom in this small time, I'm grateful for you all. Like truly, this has been beautiful. It's only starting. There's so much more to go. So I don't know what song I'm gonna play. I don't know if it's going to be Frank Ocean or freaking a Destroy Lonely guitar riff. And speaking of that, one of my friends is this. He manages artists, he produces, he does tours and everything. Maxim, he's amazing. He's great. I knew him, but I never really knew him. Taking the time to really get to know someone's world is beautiful. it's amazing. So yeah, to more growth and to more discovering beauties within oneself and others through just looking at things differently for others and for myself, but mostly for you all. Because I do this, I don't do this as much for myself. Actually, you know what? I'll keep that thought for another time. Until then, excuse me. I hope that if you're on Spotify, you enjoy the song. If you're on YouTube, enjoy my yap session. And I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I hope that you all have an incredible time. So until next time, for those on Spotify, here's the song.